Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
There's a long answer that involves me not being a real big fan of the Miami Marlins right now, but the short answer is yeah, it's fine. It's good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Who would you say you prefer right now, Marlins man or the Miami Marlins?
Mm, mm. Um, they're
Hmm?
two very different types of bad. Marlins man is basically Buckeye guy in an orange visor, which is a type of bad, but that type of bad is not necessarily going to preclude me from getting to go watch college football this fall. So, that's I guess I prefer Marlins man to the Marlins themselves.
Okay, yeah, me too. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Today's going to be a listener questions episode that we didn't get to last week. There's not a lot going on right now, Tom. I'm not sure if you've been aware, but we don't know anything about schedules. We don't know anything about Big Ten Media Day. We don't know anything about, gosh, anything right now.
We don't know anything about anything, but what we do know, it's not great. Not what you're looking for.
And we do know enough to answer some questions. So why don't we just go ahead and get that started and maybe through the course of the show, talk some college football.
All right, first one from at Brock 774-11489. Worst team to have to play with little to no notice.
Tom, who do you have here? Because I know who I have. It was the first answer that in my head, and then I went through and looked, and it's like, yeah, that still stays that same answer.
Any kind of service academy or, the Paul Johnson era Georgia Tech, like it just the weird triple option that has nothing to do with anyone else you face. And if you beat them, you get no credit for it whatsoever. And if it's close, then people will hold it against you forever. And heaven forbid you lose, because then you'll never hear the end of it. So yeah, I think that's one that when teams have all summer to prepare for it, sometimes that still almost rises up and gets them like it did with Oklahoma a couple of years ago in Army. That just seems like I mean, Michigan almost got it last year from Army. That just seems like if you had to do that on like a week of notice or a week and a half of notice, like that seems like that is real danger zone.
I think as the question is maybe relating to just in a Big Ten schedule sense.
Oh,
So
if
who would you
Navy
have
was in the
there?
Big Ten, then
Because for me, I'm going Minnesota because they have Tanner Morgan, they have Rashad Bateman, and they have a couple of other starting receivers, and they have an offense that would give a new Ohio State defense some issues, particularly in the secondary, where you have an accurate quarterback, talented receivers. They've got like three tight ends with starting experience and three receivers with starting experience. They lose Tyler Johnson, but they still bring back the running back Mohamed Ibrahim as well. But I think they have an offense that would be tough for the brand new Ohio State secondary to kind of shut down. Or and looking through the Big Ten list of teams, like I guess looking through the Big Ten, there's not a lot of teams there. You're like, that wouldn't be, that wouldn't be too good for the Buckeyes. It's like, well, I think they could handle all of them. But if you're asking me like the worst Big Ten team to have to play with little to no notice, I think it would be Minnesota.
yeah, that's a good answer. And the other element of that is Ohio State hasn't played Minnesota in a while, so Ohio State has not already scouted them. If they had to play Wisconsin on short notice, it's like, yeah, okay, we know what Jack Cohn is. We know what Wisconsin is basically the same thing every year. Ohio State seems to play Wisconsin every year. It's fine, and that's true of most of the teams in the West. And the teams that it's not true of in the West is like it's Iowa. And I know things didn't go great the last time Ohio State played Iowa, but Ohio State has been scouting Iowa for this year because they're on the schedule already. So I'm sure they have watched a whole bunch of Iowa film. So Minnesota, I think, is a good one because they haven't played them for a couple of years. It's a very different team than it was the last time Minnesota came to OSU in 2018. They're not on the schedule until 2021. So yeah, that's a good answer.
Although Iowa, Tom, if Ohio State last played them in 2004, like nothing would have changed. You can just go back to
Yeah,
that film and
they're
scout
going to
Iowa.
yeah. Watch out for the tight ends. That seems to be And Iowa doesn't seem like they're probably on the cusp of greatness this year. Things are not trending wonderfully for that whole program this year, which is another part of it. Like, yeah, if they haven't played Illinois in a while, like it's Illinois, it'll be fine. Like unless you're in Champaign, in which case not great. Never good to play in Champaign. Next one from at CFB Unleashed. If there is, in fact, a football season, who has more receiving yards, Olave or Wilson?
I am when given the option of an outside receiver or a slot receiver producing more yards in Ohio State's offense since Urban Meyer has taken over, I have to go with the slot receiver because only twice since 2012 has an outside receiver had more yards than the leading slot receiver, and that was Michael Thomas in 2014 and 2015. Every other year, it's been a slot receiver, be it Philly Brown or Curtis Samuel, Paris Campbell, KJ Hill. So I'm going to go Garrett Wilson there. Although, in fairness, Tom, that's just receptions that they – because KJ Hill didn't lead in yards last year. That was Olave. But KJ Hill did lead in receptions. So when I say the H-back always leads, it's actually they always lead in receptions. So I'm still going to go with Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, I think I'm going with Garrett Wilson too because I think Garrett Wilson. I mean, we talked about Garrett Wilson, what the numbers could look like this year. He is going to get a lot of snaps at that age. That's the easy place to kind of dump it off. That's I think a pretty early read in the progression a lot of times, and he is someone who KJ Hill was an incredibly versatile player, great receiver, great hands. He was not necessarily the game breaker that Garrett Wilson is, where you can, KJ Hill could take a drag route over the middle and turn it into 15 yards and a first down. And it's like, that was a big play. Garrett Wilson's the kind of guy that could take that same drag route and maybe turn it into 50 instead of 15. So yeah, I would go with Garrett Wilson there as well. Next one from at G. Scott Sr. Stuck on an island and you can only have one fast food restaurant. Which one would it be? I got to say, Buckeye Scoop sponsor, Raising Cane's. That's got to be up there. You got your chicken strips, got your fries, got your toast, get some a nice sweet tea, a nice lemonade.
Yes.
I mean that would be pretty refreshing on a nice desert island. Yeah,
I like the Orange Fanta as well. I should have added to this, like, in addition to Cane's, because we know, of course, one would be Cane's. The first answer would be Cane's. But if there was a second, Tom, if you had to choose a second fast food place, I
got to think about it for a minute.
Okay, you think then. Yeah. I'll go over some of the ones that I was thinking, because do you have to choose a place that has breakfast? I think you probably do. Do you have to go with a place that has both beef and chicken, like a burger or chicken? Or does it have to be Mexican? Do you need Taco Bell, where there's no shortage of things you can do with these same 5 or 6 ingredients, and they also have a very underrated breakfast? Is Chinese considered fast food? I don't know. So my first thought was Taco Bell, because for one, it's also cheap. It's not too expensive. You can get various things, although they keep removing stuff that I like. And I actually haven't been there in a couple months. But instead of Taco Bell, I would probably then go Chipotle, because it's better quality and I can generally get a good meal every single time. But I always get the same thing. So then it's like, you're not going to keep one place open to get just the same thing. Rally's is very underrated, Tom. They've got good fries. They've got all kinds of greasy foods that, they'll throw some a cheesesteak on top of a burger and put some bacon on it. And it's like, well, of course, that's amazing. So for me, I guess I would have to go, and this is very difficult. I guess I'll go with my first choice, which was like, go with the heart, which is Taco Bell. Where are you at after all of this time?
I feel like I need more information on the island. Is this like an island where we're at a resort, or is this an island like we're on Gilligan's Island and, plumbing could be an issue, and, that could be, there's, you get there pretty quickly when you work things through with Taco Bell, just in your mind, like, the and then what happened part of the story is always a little bit of a concern with Taco Bell. But
there are many latrines that have been dug.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, that's a good choice. I like that because yeah, you're right. You want breakfast. It's the variety that's going to be the key. And you're normally. I would love. I sort of cheating, but like I think my ideal answer for this, instead of a fast food, if you want to count like a diner, like where you want,
Well,
you have
yes.
like this 7-page menu that you could eat a different thing every meal all year and not get
Mhm.
tired of it. That would be, I think that's the ideal answer here. But yeah, something with variety, like but a breakfast place, I think is important. So yeah, Taco Bell's a good answer until it isn't. So
Yeah.
till you
Well
have to,
said.
as they say, make a run for the border. Next one from @Buckwin. Which past yet recent assistant coach would you want to have come back if you didn't have to replace a current staff member? Zach Smith, Tom Herman? Would you go Alex Grinch, Jeff Halfley, or another? And food. Why do people enjoy Skyline chili? I have an extremely immediate answer for this. Jeff
Mhm.
Halfley. I would like Jeff Halfley back. Can they bring Jeff Halfley back? Jeff Halfley was fun. The defense was great. He was so fun to talk to. Like you got very straight answers from him on stuff, which you generally do not from coachings, because that's just not how most coaches are wired. That this was like the fastest, most immediate response that I've had in to probably any listener question in months. What about you?
Bill Davis.
Just so, just for the angry comments, or
No, just the same immediate. Get back to having quality coaches. Now the answer is Jeff Halfley. We both. It's great covering him because um, he'll tell you as much as he can, but then when he gets to start telling you too much, he'll have to stop and be like, guys, I don't want to lie to you, so I'm just not going to tell you anymore. But he was always good. Like you could just grab him whenever and talk to him, and obviously the defense. Anytime you are a new defensive coordinator and you go from what Ohio State put on the field in 2018 to statistically the best defense in the nation 1 year later, that's a pretty good job. And he was a co-coordinator with Greg Madison, and we all know like Larry Johnson is as much a coordinator as anybody, and this guy and that guy. But Jeff Halfley, I don't know, is he the best assistant coach hire Ohio State has had? I don't know, like ever. I mean, there's Tom Herman was good in 2000, 12, and that obviously turned that offense around. But that was going to, I mean, Urban Meyer was going to turn that offense around. I
Ryan Day's worked out okay.
Ryan Day, well, we'll see, we'll
Too
see.
soon to say.
Yeah, but it is interesting that maybe the best Ohio State assistant hire then hired the next best Ohio State assistant hire. We may one day have to like debate that, but clearly Jeff Hafley is not a better hire than Ryan Day.
Here's the really fascinating conversation. Okay, Tom Herman, like that's probably an A to an A+ hire. Okay, Ryan Day, probably an A+ hire, and the middle of that offensive coordinator sandwich was Tim Beck.
Yeah, um, it's almost like
It's like when
if these
when
are
Brett
all,
Saberhagen used to have Cy Young award-winning seasons
every other
and
year,
then
yeah,
just have a 5 ERA during the even years, like, and then
yeah.
right back to a
Mhm.
Cy Young. Yeah, like what?
You
So
know, basically, if we're looking at these as like tests, and Urban Meyer gets an A+ with Tom Herman and gets an A+ with this, and then he brings home the report card with Tim Beck, and teachers are like, is something going on at home? Urban, is everything all right at home? What's going on? Is everything okay with you? Are you are you sad about something? Like, why did you struggle with this particular class? And of course, that's just it's. I guess you would probably blame Ed Warner there. Like I copied off of Ed Warner, and he told me he wrote down on his test Tim Beck, and so then I copied, and I shouldn't have done it. It's been a stressful year. I had a 4.0 last year. I thought I could coast this year, and it turns out that I can't. Yeah,
yeah, the
there's good and there's bad hires for sure.
yeah, and Tim Beck. The nicest thing I can say about Tim Beck is that it works out very consistently when you hire Tim Beck. Worked out very consistently in Nebraska, Ohio State, Texas, It is. You know what you're getting. It's dependable in its own way.
No
Uh,
surprises.
and Gerd, why do people enjoy Skyline chili? That's our second question from Buck Quinn.
I think I have had Skyline chili maybe twice. I only remember once because it was just so not special in any way. It was small hot dogs that were then like thrown like I don't know, two or three on a plate, then covered in quote unquote chili, and then covered with a gob of shredded cheese. And I'm like, well, so what? Is this a knife and fork thing? Sure, whatever. Okay, and then you're eating it. And it's like, well, this is just something I could get out of like every Kroger brand. I like Kroger brand hot dog, Kroger brand cheese, Kroger brand quote unquote chili. And it's why would I pay like $7, $8 for this one? First of all, it's not good. I I make a better hot dog at home with just ketchup and a white bread. I mean, I don't even need a bun to be better than Skyline. I don't get it. I think the people who say they love it, it's a regional pride thing with them, where everybody has the pizza from our town is better, and this from our town is better. Like you can't possibly believe that Skyline is quality, but you are very entrenched into your region of the state because you have low self-esteem and you need something to grab onto to make yourself feel better about yourself. So you latch onto Skyline. That's the only explanation I can come up with.
Yeah, they can't fall back on the Bengals, so yeah.
For the Reds.
I worked with a guy from Cincinnati for a number of years, and his tradition was we would go to Skyline every year on opening day and get Skyline because it's opening day is a big Cincinnati thing, and so I got in the habit of going to Skyline with him on opening day once a year, and it was like, yeah, that's plenty of Skyline. See you next year. If you are going to go for a Ohio border city with wonderful local hot dog place, Toledo, Tony Pacos. That is, it's been around since the 30s. Our old buddy John Parentis knew Tony Pacos family way back in the day on the east side of Toledo, and they do it's a much meatier sauce, like a thicker. It's not like watery, like a Skyline sauce, and thicker, meatier, and the hot dog is like a kielbasa cut in half, basically. So yeah, it's like a Hungarian style hot dog. My wife is from up there. That is anytime we go visit her family up there, we always make a point to stop at Tony Pacos. So if you are looking for an Ohio regional hot dog delicacy to give a shot, that's worth a try. And we can have a long conversation about the inherent unfairness of the universe that Skyline is the one that is franchised in Columbus and not Tony Pacos. But that's fine. That's worth when you're up in Toledo. That's worth stopping off right off of 475 or whatever the highway is right on the east side of the river. So.
I also kind of have an issue with just paying for hot dogs in a restaurant because I feel like there's not just regular hot dogs. There's not a lot you can do to them. You're gonna have to throw stuff on them now. At least at Tony Pacos, there's different kinds of cased meats where it's not necessarily something that you can just do at home. I don't like buying stuff or paying for fast food stuff that I can do at home. I nothing that I get at Skyline. First of all, nothing that I get at Skyline would I also make at home because why? If I don't want it, am I going to make it and force myself to eat it? But I don't. I'm not a big fan of Skyline. I don't understand why people are, and I don't know how do you feel about Gold Star chili, Tom?
I feel like it's pretty much the same as
I
Skyline.
know.
I think
Right?
we stopped. We had a trip to somewhere in the South last year, 2 years ago, and dropped. Had to. We're driving back with the kids, and it was it's dinner time, and the kids have been in the car too long, and they really wanted to go to a sit down place, and we ended up at a Gold Star because we were in Cincinnati. It's like, well, this is a sit down restaurant that's open at 8 p.m. and we can just get in and out relatively quickly. And it was like, yeah, it's fine. Cincinnati chili, it's fine. And I haven't felt compelled to go back, and that was probably pushing 2 years ago now. So yeah, it's like it's not going to poison you, but it's I again, I don't feel compelled to go racing back in there.
Anytime I buy a hot dog from, like, say, Sonic, they have some chili dogs. I always feel the same way I do when I leave an aquarium. It's like, I paid for it, but did I enjoy it? No. Will I go back? I probably have to at some point, but I don't feel good about the money that I have spent to do this thing.
The move at Sonic is the chili cheese tots. That's the move at Sonic.
Yeah.
Those are tasty. And again, that's another place that's like, yeah, there's one like 5 minutes from my house, and I don't think I've been there in 6 months. But it's like, yeah, if someone's like, I really want to go to Sonic, like, yeah, it's fine. I'll go to Sonic. That's fine. All right, next one from at Mick D. Walker, who is really trying to stir some stuff up right now. Give each other a nickname on the spot and explain why you chose that. Gerd, you go first.
I already told Mick I wasn't going to do this, but I do have like a dismissive nickname for people, and that's Chief. Like, okay, Chief, on Twitter. Or, thanks, Chief. Or
This ain't it, Chief.
where exactly? So I don't know, Tom. What do you got, Chief?
I went with your full legal name, gastroesophageal reflux disease. I love tweeting about you, and because there is a medical condition where the abbreviation is GERD. So if I tweet about GERD, I will get the like automatic like bot bot like about from the Digestive Health Foundation or whatever it is. Just like, nope, you did not read this tweet very closely.
Yeah, I have been GERD since I was like 7 years old. And did I want it? Not necessarily, but could I do anything about it? No. And I remember when I was like, I don't know, 12 or 13 or 14, my best friend, his mom, came down with GERD. And she had like this box of like, it was like dealing with GERD. And she showed it to me. I was like, well, don't let anybody in school know about this, because then, we were just kids. Nobody knew about GERD back then. And so, yeah, it is what it is, Tom. I can't do anything about it now. I tried to change my name to Mr. Thompson for a while, but it did not take, no matter how much I tried. So I am this. It is what it is. I'm fine with it. It's funny because if people are like, "Hey, Tony," like at an availability, if somebody says Tony, it's like that doesn't really register with me unless it's coming from Jerry Emmig's voice,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like I'm tuned to that frequency. But like, yeah, that's hardly my name. It's almost like I'm in trouble if somebody says Tony.
What really blows my mind is when we go rent a car for a road trip, and the other name on the thing, I'm the second driver, and the first name on the rental agreement is Anthony Gerdeman. And I'm like, who the heck is Anthony Gerdeman? What?
Exactly. Who is this stranger?
Next one from at Steve Smizak. Will Michigan be the first game of the year? And we do not have an official answer to this yet, but my strong guess would be no. That's based on how the Big Ten does its scheduling in a typical year. And obviously, this is not anything close to a typical year. But when I talked to Mike McComiskey, who's the guy who actually does the scheduling for the Big Ten, I talked to him back in January for another story. And what he told me back then was they take into account like requests from schools to put, to have certain games on certain weeks. And obviously, the Ohio State Michigan game's always the last week, and certain the Indiana Purdue game's always the last week. And one of the other, there's not very many other examples of things that they try to take into account. But one of them was that Michigan and Michigan State have asked to never be the first weekend of Big Ten play. So they don't want to open with each other because you can have some weird stuff and it's early in the season. They want to be a little further into the season when they play. Given that, I think it would be extraordinarily unlikely that Michigan would be like, yep, let's play Ohio State week 1. I would guess that they're going to want to open with, Ohio State opens with Rutgers and Michigan opens with Maryland. And then, sure, it could be week 2, it could be week 3, it could be week 5, it could be week 7. But I would guess based on that it will not be week 1. But, there's the idea they'll play twice. There's the idea they'll, so who knows? This is obviously not a normal year, but in a normal year, following the normal year kind of protocols, I think it's extraordinarily unlikely that they would be up for that.
Yeah, and we've got a question down here asking for our prediction of the date of the game. So we'll wait till we
Yeah.
get there. But yeah, I don't expect it to be the first game of the year just because nobody wants to open up. Even in a year like this, you'd still want to see your team on the field before you play the biggest game of the year.
Yep. Yeah, let's skip down to that one right now. AZN8 asks, what is your bold prediction for the date of the game? Not that the Bucs would need it, but the earlier the better. With 4 new offensive line starters, new quarterback, the Rushmen will have a field day.
Tom,
What's your
I'm going with September 26th for the third game of the season. There will be a bye week somewhere in there, assuming the season starts on September 5th. You play again on the 12th. You take the 19th off. You get a bye week before the game, so that makes it a little bit more acceptable. It allows you to heal up or get everybody out of quarantine, uh, but also leaves a week where they could get into quarantine where there's nothing going on in the bye week blues. But I'm going to go September 26th because it's still early in the season. You get 2 games to get the kinks out, then you get a week off to prepare for your rival. To me, it makes sense if we're under the assumption that they want to get the division games in early, and by scheduling it earlier, it gives you the opportunity to move it back as well. That's where I am. September 26th. I'm not saying put it in ink. Tattoo, yes.
Yeah, I'm along the same lines as you. It's not going to be the first week, I don't think. I also think they want to try and make sure they get these games in. Like, if they can get an Ohio State Michigan game in, and if they can get an Ohio State Penn State game in, like it would not surprise me if Ohio State played Rutgers week 1, Penn State week 2, week off, Michigan State week 4, Michigan week 5, or something like that. I had it down for October 10th. Honestly, that may be too late because they may really just be trying to kind of front load the schedule where if you don't have a full season or you only get in 6 games, you at least have your conference, your division games in at that point. So and then you backload with the cross division games. Um, I was thinking through this and it was like, you know what? I almost don't care when it is. Like if there's an Ohio State Michigan game this year, that's great. I'll take it. Let's do that whenever it
Although,
is.
but me here trying to put together the ideal situation with a week off before Michigan, we know, Tom, that is not what the Big Ten does for Ohio State as it relates to the Michigan game. So you're probably right. It'll be a Penn State or something before the Michigan game. So there is no time off to gear up or whatever. It's just going to go from one to the other.
All right, next one from Franchise 23. Word on the street is the Buckeyes are playing September 5th. Any truth to this rumor and who it may be?
Well, I mean, that's always been the date. And so, we haven't been told that the season would start later. So we thought that maybe it could start week 0. Gene Smith mentioned that a while ago, but because things have slowed down in terms of this putting this schedule out, they're now into week 3 of trying to figure out what the schedule is going to be. So I think that eliminates week 0, and we just continue on with the fact that this season is going to start on September 5th because that's what every other scheduling aspect of workouts has them leading towards, where you've got this 2 week of the spring period right now, and then fall camp starts on August 7th, and then you have 4 weeks of that, and then you start the games on September 5th. So I mean, we have no reason to believe that we've never had a reason to believe that the season wasn't going to start on time because there has never. I mean, it's always been about, can we start earlier? Do we need to start later? There's been no real slowing down of the process. So I'm going to assume the process is still beginning on September 5th for the Big Ten.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly what the schedule seems like it's pointing towards right now. So based on that, sure. And until we hear another date, I think that's by far the most likely date. It's so interesting because the Big 12 seems like they're trying to move some things up and get started as quickly as possible and play some week 0 games. And the Pac-12, there was reports this week that the Pac-12 may be looking at starting on September 19th instead of September 5th. And that's everyone is sort of approaching this differently. The Big Ten has been at least more in lockstep with the Pac-12 in terms of how they've been approaching it. So maybe that's an indication the Big Ten might slide it later. But yeah, I think right now the answer is it is most likely going to be a September 5th more likely than any other date, it is going to be September 5th. And I think it's going to be a division team. It's probably going to not be a super high profile division team. I don't think they open with Penn State. I don't think they open with Michigan. So, pick one: Maryland, Indiana, Michigan State, Rutgers. One of those is probably your most likely, and your most likely date is September 5th.
I don't understand why you push something back. Like what's the reasoning behind starting later when what do you gain other than you lose 2 weeks?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that there is a lot to be said for the idea that you space the season out as much as you can. You take your 10 games, or your 12 games, or your 8 games, or your 6 games, whatever you're going to play, and space them out as much as you can and give people as much, recovery time in the middle as you can. I think there's a lot to be said for that. And so, yeah, that's where I would be going. But, I am neither a doctor nor a conference commissioner. So maybe there are factors that are going into this that we're not aware of. But yeah, that is certainly what I would think you'd want to do. But
Starting with the week 0 games, it just made so much sense to go with starting in the week 0. That gives you 14 weeks to play 10 games. That gives you, a bye week after every 2 games. And so now sounds like they've pretty much already lost that week, because I don't see that. Like camp would have to be starting next week, or at the end of this week, I think, actually, and that's not going to happen.
right. Yeah, that's Ryan Day has talked about wanting 6 weeks to be ready. 6 weeks to be ready for the September 5th would have been exactly the date they started on. So that certainly seems like they're still on, at least theoretically on track for that. Next one from @Buckeye AM. If there is no season, how do you develop the younger players?
Well, just because there's no games doesn't mean there can't be workouts. Can't be some sort of, I don't even know if you could call them practices. Football is a year-round thing anyway, and games are only played from September through like December and first week of January. So there's 8-9 other months where there's still football going on and players are improving. But you have to, like, do you have 2 or 3 springs, like full contact type of things so that you've lost the season, but you don't want to lose the year,
Yeah. Well, and the idea could be that instead of playing a spring game next year, you play 3 spring scrimmages against other schools or something like that. I mean, that's a possibility. And, again, a lot of this is going to depend on, are players allowed to stay on campus? Does everyone have to go home at some point? If there's no season because there's no one on campus, do the players go home, or do they stay in school and keep working out? What does the NCAA let them do? I mean, the NCAA could shut everything down if they wanted to, or individual leagues could shut things down if they wanted to. It just, we don't know. They will obviously, as they showed earlier this year, whatever they're told they need to do, they will have a plan for it to keep developing them, even if it is, guys are at home working out individually. They are going to be much more prepared for that this time than they were the last time, so that'll help. But yeah, they will do whatever they can to keep guys going. And there are so many variables with everything right now that it's impossible to have, like, okay, this is definitely our plan no matter what. Like, no, they have plans 1 through 54 right now, and whichever one they end up getting in terms of people being able to be on campus and people being able to congregate in certain numbers and all of that kind of stuff, they will figure it out from there. And with as much talent as they have in terms of their strength and conditioning staff and their coaching staff and just the resources that Ohio State has, Ohio State seems like whatever the situation is, they're probably going to come out ahead longer term, just because they have resources that other schools don't have to throw at these problems right now.
Remember, like all of these players will go, if they have to go back home, they generally have places they train with actual, trainers, professional trainers or volunteer trainers, and they won't be alone. There's other people they'll be working out with. So like they still will work on their craft. It's not like they're going to come back 40 pounds heavier and completely out of shape because they haven't done anything.
Yeah. Yep. Next one from @Riverfront76. Given how bad 2020 has been, is it fair to say that the replay official from the Fiesta Bowl is one of history's greatest monsters? And you might think a virus that has led to all of this couldn't be immediately directly traceable back to a SEC replay official. But I mean, it has kind of all been straight downhill from that moment. So, maybe.
Show me proof that that's not true. You can't.
I'm picturing the gif of Charlie Day like waving his hands crazy with the yarn. And somewhere there's a picture of Jordan Fuller returning that fumble on that board for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Final one from at the with 4 E's, Chad. Is there a chance that the regular season could end up being 12 Big Ten games if everything goes well, or do we know for a fact that they're capping it at 10? Also, if the whole quarterback room was out and you had to form a new one using other players on the team, who could play quarterback?
First one, they can't go to 12 Big Ten games, or else you've lost the very flexibility that you eliminated the non-conference for. And sure, there was some of that to where you want everybody doing the same thing. So maybe you play 12 Big Ten teams. We know 12 Big Ten games. We know that's what the Nebraska AD wanted. But there's also building in these extra weeks, these bye weeks, these free weeks, to where if something gets canceled, you can push that. And if you have 12 games and only one bye week, you've kind of lost all of the flexibility that you were talking about. So I don't see that happening. And if it does, then that's a very optimistic thing. And if I'm not going to be against optimism right now, if you want to shoot for the moon, go ahead. But I would expect that it would be capped out at 10. And we don't know what the actual number is going to be yet, because again, the Big Ten is in their third week of scheduling and they're not coming out and saying anything right now, really. So I think 10 is about the most you can have if you plan on having weeks where you're going to either have some postponements, or you feel like if you're going to build in for a virus, then you're going to want some free weeks. If you're not going to build in for the virus, then you're not going to have any free weeks. And it's like, well, shouldn't you be building in for the virus during a pandemic?
Seems like an important part of the conversation, yes. Yeah, I think it's very unlikely that they end up going up in number of games from whatever they initially announced. I mean, it sounds like they're going to try and announce it at 10. It doesn't seem like that's likely to go up. I think there's a decent chance that they announce 10 games and teams only end up playing 8 or something like that. And that may not be that everything shuts down. That just may be that, hey, everyone on Purdue tested positive. So now Purdue can't play for the next 2 weeks. So the teams that were supposed to play them maybe have another week off, or, whatever it is. I think that's probably much more likely than the number going up from 10. So, again, if they play 6 games this fall and one of them is Michigan, that's fine. Where can I sign up for that right now?
People talking about like playoffs. How does this affect, how does the CFP choose like 8 games or 12? I don't even worry about that right now.
This could very well be one of those like old school years where it's just like, well, all of these teams played just conference schedules and there's virtually no overlapping data points. So we're just going to have polls decide this. And, whereas that would sound incredibly stupid in the like NFL or Major League Baseball, like you're going to vote on who the champion was. Like, yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, this is not any dumber than how they used to do it. I mean, like in our memories, this is not like this is 19 and Dickety 6 that they were doing this. This was like the mid 90s they did this. So yeah, it is. This could very well be a year where Billingsley and all the different old BCS computer rankings all spit out their own national champions, and you have like 6 different national champions. Like, sure, absolutely. And you know what? Fly that flag, man. Claim it. There you go. Like, Bill Connolly will put out an SP Plus national champion. Great. Hang the banner. That's cool. That whatever it takes, man. That's fine.
If you go through the like Wikipedia of national championships, like go back to like 1950 or 42 or whatever, and there's like 5, 6, 7 teams listed, because there've also been like computer systems created since then. Obviously, there were none back in 1936 or whatever, but to declare all of these different teams national champions, and yeah, we could see quite a few. This is Michigan's best chance at a national championship since 2006.
Yeah, and UCF could hang a second national championship banner in 3 years if they put together a good run. And you know what? Let me tell you something. Alabama has already claimed this one. Based on the history, I can tell you Alabama has already claimed this year's national championship and built another Saban statue somewhere.
Roll Tide.
And to get his last one, if the whole quarterback room was out and you had to form a new one using other players on the team who could play quarterback, I think he'd go the Lynn Bowden, Kentucky route and just pick someone who's fast, shifty. Like, I wouldn't mind seeing Garrett Wilson back there with the ball in his hand, just making stuff happen. But there is no shortage of short, shifty guys. Maybe you could, just throwing this out there, maybe you could get someone back from the wide receiver room at Miami. I mean, I'm just saying, maybe.
Oh, that's an interesting thought, Tom. I'm going to go with the 2-time Michigan High School Player of the Year, who played quarterback in the last 2 years, and Cameron Martinez, who gives you that shiftiness, the ball handling ability, and would also get the running backs involved. And, he rushed for almost 7,000 yards in his high school career. So, Tom, he's pretty adept at moving the ball downfield. Can he throw it? Throw it up to these Ohio State receivers, and you're going to be okay. Throw it up to Garrett Wilson. You're going to be all right. Now, sure, Garrett Wilson might be put into a hospital with all of these, jump balls over the middle of the field. I'm not saying that's the best tactic to go with, but, yeah, I could go with Cameron Martinez. Not knowing the schedule, he could lead the Buckeyes to an 8-2 year.
That's a really good one. I had not thought about Cameron Martinez. I was going through all the offensive skill guys, but, yeah, that's actually a really good pick. Think about how mad Michigan fans will be if a kid from Michigan leads true freshman emergency quarterback leads Ohio State to a win over Michigan. That would be, as mad as they have been in the past. Last year it was online classes. This would be,
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know. I don't even know where you go from online classes being the reason, but that's we would find out, and it would be pretty darn funny.
Playing a defensive player at quarterback is deceptive, and it's borderline cheating because you didn't get a chance to prepare for this person. There's no film of him, doing this at Ohio State. It's kind of it's dirty pool basically when you're not showing your hand as you're supposed to do it in all things, all card games. You're supposed to show your hand, or else it's cheating, right, Tom? Is that how cards work?
That's exactly how cards work. Yes, I'm not very good at cards, by the way.
All right, I think that'll do it. Pretty good. Thanks for all of the questions, everybody. Thanks, of course, to Chief here as well.
You're gonna make me say gastroesophageal again. See, your name is hard.
It's like the nickname is supposed to shorten things, not exponentially lengthen them. So you have to come up with a shortening of the gastroesophageal reflux disease somehow.
What about GERD? What do you think? Will that work? Does that work for you?
We can try it out, but if you use it too much, it might lose its meaning. But you got to try it out for a while to see if it sticks. We'll see. Who knows? Thank you all for listening. Make sure to check out everything in Buckeye Scoop. There is plenty. Mark Givler just had an interview with Tristan Lee, the 5-star offensive tackle, one of Ohio State's last remaining targets. Tommy, I think, did you talk to Mark about that on
Morning Scoop? Yes, Mark was on the Morning Scoop on Tuesday morning. That was a great interview. Talked about Tristan Lee and where Ohio State stands in his final 5 and when a decision might be coming. And then on Monday, Ohio State and LSU both offered Tristan Lee's younger brother, who's a 2023 prospect. So that it's certainly some interesting gamesmanship and how much does Mark think that might play into any kind of decision? And that's a position. Tackle's a spot where Mark thought this is probably the biggest remaining spot that Ohio State has to fill now that they've landed Jordan Hancock and kind of plugged the hole at corner. Tackle is probably the last place that's like, yep, they really need to get someone, whether it's him or flip JC Latham. So this is going to be a pretty big recruitment. So I had a good conversation with him on Tuesday mornings. You can find that. Just search Buckeye Scoop and just look for the Morning Scoop on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, whatever.
Yeah, and if you search Buckeye Scoop, you'll see a bunch of other podcasts there as well that you'll want to check out. So thank you all for listening to this one. We invite you to listen to all of the others. Check out BuckeyeScoop.com, and we will talk to you guys later.